in Pittsburgh where there must have been 30, 40,000 people there. And my dad wore his regular Air Force uniform with his Medal of Honor around it because he was like the guest that night. And he took my other brother and my sister and my other sister with us. And I remember walking into the upper level where we were supposed to be. And there was a woman airman and a sergeant behind her, a tech sergeant. And she stopped my dad and said, "Do you have tickets?" My dad said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Only people with tickets can get in this section." And right behind her was this tech sergeant who had put his hands on her shoulders behind her and said, "Excuse me, that hanging around his neck is his ticket." And when she realized what it was, she snapped to attention, he snapped to attention and saluted them. And then they escorted us over to where we were to sit, and then my dad where he was going to stand. And I remember the lights going down and it becoming very dark in there, and then they started to tell, and they shined the spotlight on my dad. And they told his story of how he received the Medal of Honor. And for a kid, every kid wants his dad to be a hero. I grew up with everybody telling me my dad was. I could look in any book, any magazine, I could go on any military base, and they all told me the same thing. But the reality of that, with moments like that, is what kind of brought it home to me, that my dad really was a hero. And, you know, I wouldn't have traded the 18 years of my life growing up with him in the military, because that is a whole different society, a whole different culture. And I remember going to the base and waiting for my dad to fly in an airplane. He flew in this particular time. He came from someplace in a T-33. I remember standing there at the runway with my mother and some of my other brothers and sisters. And as my dad flew over the runway and passed us, he tipped his wings like this and made his pass and came back and then landed. You know, it's little things like that that create memories. But even though there were times that my dad wasn't there, there was the memories and the pride of doing that. The times that I spent with my dad growing up were usually either hunting or fishing. And so those are the kinds of things I try to carry with my children too. And for the last probably 10 years of his life, from 1980 to 90, I would take him at least once a year to Canada fishing, and we'd have a 10-hour drive up and a 10-hour drive back. And one time during that 10 hours, I asked him on the way back, if you had it to do all over again, would you have wanted the Medal of Honor? And he said, no. He said it was like a millstone hanging around his neck. He only ever went in the military to be a fighter pilot. And once he received the Medal of Honor, because of another incident where somebody who had the Medal of Honor was back in a fighter unit or whatever, got killed, they had decided at the Pentagon that they didn't want to lose their heroes anymore. And so that anybody with a Congressional Medal of Honor who was still living was not allowed to be in a combat unit. So they stamped his jacket at the Pentagon, cannot be in a combat unit. So there were times that he was able to find himself, weasel his way back into squadrons or fighter units, and he had many more record kills than has ever been recorded. And I don't know if most people know this, but this is from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But he was not allowed to have them credited to him because he was not allowed to be in a combat zone. And, you know, that's what he lived for. That's what he enjoyed doing. But whenever they would find him in a fighter unit, they would jerk him out of that and reassign him. But the last 2 years of his military career, from 66 to 68, is when they took him off of flying status. And as he put it, gave him a desk job, and he was either base commander, wing commander, executive officer. And that's not what he went into the military for. And a lot of people asked him if he wanted to come out and be like a commercial pilot, but he said he didn't want to drive a taxi. And that's all he thought commercial piloting was. The thing was, he didn't even want any fanfare the day that he died, when he had pulmonary fibrosis. And, you know, growing up, I don't care if my dad got up at 3 in the morning to take a leak. He had a lit cigar. In that picture with President Kennedy, you'll see his hand by his side. He's got a cigar, and I remember my mother chewing him out for that. There you are, standing there with President Kennedy. You've got a cigar in your hand. You can't just put him down for a moment. He says, he smokes them too.
Yeah.
Yep. If you could blow that up, you could see he's got a cigar in his hand. He's holding on to it. But you never saw him without a cigar.
Mm.
And
Was he a chewer, though, or was he a smoker?
He never chewed, did
he chewed and
he? He chewed
smoked
the
them.
cigars, mainly.
Yeah.
He didn't smoke them near the end.
No, at the end he didn't smoke them because in 1977 there was some kind of thing in San Jose, California for Medal of Honor winners where they flew my mother, my sister, and my dad out there for some Medal of Honor thing. So that was just right when I was leaving the public health service, and they came down to Los Angeles to visit. And so he had had pneumonia at the time and refused to go to the hospital, really bad. And so as I'm driving him around West Hollywood, showing him West Hollywood and the sights, and my sister was in, or my mother was in the front seat with me. My sister was in the front seat with me. My mother was in the back seat. My dad was directly behind me. And he just started coughing and he expired. Quit breathing totally, and if we'd have left him, he'd have died right at that moment. We revived him, and that scared the crap out of me. So quickly I went to one of the clinics that I went to, and we got him an inhaler and stuff, and then got him to an emergency room and stuff. But they put him on antibiotics. He refused to go to the hospital still. Put him on all kinds of antibiotics, and then he was still sicker than a dog, but he flew back to Pennsylvania then.